Hello, welcome to Bob's Dungeon. My name's Bob, I'll be your host, and welcome to my final video for my June storm finishing in July. And this year's theme has been the worst things I've seen happen in tabletop role-playing games. And they've been getting increasingly bad as they go along. This story that I have for you in this video is the absolute worst thing I've seen happen in a tabletop role-playing game. And like I've said before, if you recognize yourself in this story, don't be mad at me. I'm not pointing anybody out. I'm not using anybody's names. This is just for entertainment. So let's get on with it. This story takes place a couple of decades ago, and it is a Star Wars game using Weston Games' D6 system. The player that's in this story, he is the one that was running the Dark Side Jedi in the other story I told. And he's using the same character in this story. So anyway, what happened is his stepdaughter, who was really young at the time, she had seen Episode 4, A New Hope, for the first time. This is long before the prequels were out. But she's seen New Hope for the first time and realized that we were going to play the Star Wars role-playing game and she wanted to play it. So we said okay. And her favorite character in the movie just so happened to be R2-D2. And so she wanted to make R2-D2 up as a character. We told her, why don't you make up something else? But she was adamant about it, so she couldn't play R2, but she played an Astromech. So what I should have done is make my other player make up a brand new character and run a different game. But in the current game that we were running, it was coming to a head and really wanted to see what happened. So we just went ahead and run our normal game and we let her join in. So what happened was my friend's character was doing his evil bit, and every time he'd do something evil, his stepdaughter's Astromech would come along behind after he'd go and try to fix the situation, administering first aid, compensating people, trying to do the right thing and set things right. Well, after a couple of times, he found her doing this and was not happy about it. So, out of character, this, everybody says it's bad. It was what my character would do. My friend did not do that. Instead, usually his character probably would have killed them outright, but instead he said, look, don't do that again or else. So, and keeping with his character after that, he set up a situation to see if she'd do it again. And she did, and he saw it. So he looked at her and he said, follow me. And he took her to a room aboard the ship they were on, and he welded her little Astromech feet to the floor so she could spin her little Astromech wheels but not go anywhere. And then he said, now I want you to stay in here and think about what you did. And he turns out the light, shuts and locks the door, puts 2 armed guards on there, and tells them, if anybody comes out of that room, especially a droid, kill them. If anybody tries to get in that room other than myself, kill them. And it was at this point that his stepdaughter burst into tears and went running to her room. I felt so horrible at that point, because I was running that game and I let that happen. I'd like to think that I would not ever let something like that happen in a game I run today, now that it's decades later. But sometimes bad things happen in games. And I have to say that The worst thing I have ever seen in a tabletop role-playing game is that we made a little girl cry and turned her off to tabletop role-playing games pretty much for good. That's the worst thing that I've ever seen. And I'd like to apologize to everybody for that. But that was the worst thing I've ever seen in a tabletop role-playing game. Thank you for joining me in this rather short story. And hopefully you'll join me next time where we'll talk about something else. Bye.